right, and we're back. I thought I'd bring you through a day of training again using Juggernaut AI, as well as take the time to just give you some general feedback about some of the things that I'm using, testing for reviews at some point, which is also going to include today these Pioneer knee sleeves, which are basically their heavy-duty version, similar to, in this case, the Iron Rebels based off of the shape. But I'm hoping that my legs fit in these because these are a medium. They are looking pretty small. So are my legs. It might work. And also maybe give some feedback on some different footwear today. I haven't decided what I'm going to wear. That's one of the downsides of having so much great stuff is I tend to not have enough time to use everything. I know, first world problems. I also have my little pre-workout here mixed up, but before I start any training session, what I do is a couple of minutes on the Peloton. So I'm gonna go ahead and put on my magic shoes and get to going on that. All right, so Peloton is done. Watching some Rob Lipsett videos in the background as well. I get questions about Peloton, how can I incorporate it into my normal training? I ride the Peloton every single day. I've talked about it for a long time. I literally just do on training days 5 minutes. And in some cases, I just put it on like a set distance, which is like 1.5 miles, which tends to be right around 5 minutes. And I'll throw on something on YouTube. And then I'll also move into some mobility work. So I've been trying to do more mobility work. Not really going great. I've been doing it consistently for a long time, but I don't feel like my mobility is getting any better. I've been trying to find movements that just kind of make my hips feel better. That's one of the struggles that I have. I think it carries over to things like my squat. Because again, I work a desk job for the most part, 8 to 9 hours a day sitting for the most part. I've been trying to stand more at my standing desk, but I get more work done when I'm sitting. Probably just old habits are hard to break. But coming down here, in between when I work in the morning and in the afternoon, so typically on my lunch break or around lunchtime, I'll come in here and I'll try to work on my hips a little bit. Advertisements? What? Let's block that out. But what I really try to do is just kind of open my hips up a little bit, just feel a little bit better here. So just some movements there, as well as just my shoulders and doing some dead hangs really help open me up a little bit to get me prepped for training. All right, so mobility work is done. Now moving into the actual work. Before I do that, I'm gonna kind of look at what I'm doing for the day and also sip on a pre-workout. Right now, I'm currently using PR Breaker by Materia. It is the blue raspberry flavor. I really like all of their flavors. I like their profile. It's a good pre-workout if you're looking for it. Today's work, though, is going to be 3 main movements. So it's going to be some deficit deadlifts, it's going to be feet up bench, and it's going to be paused high bar work, which I'm actually gonna use the transformer bar. I'm gonna throw some chains in there. Get a little interesting. And I'll also be running through some of these shoes, which are the new Notorious lift slippers. These might be the Gen 3. These are definitely more shoe-like than any of the other slippers I have from them. My favorites, which I might show you in some B-roll or talk about during the course of this video, are the Gen 2 non-sumo soles. So it'll be interesting to see how these play out, but these definitely look more like shoes and they obviously fit the color scheme of the gym. So let's get to deadlifts. All right, just done deadlifting, 5 sets of 6 with 445 pounds at a 1.5 inch deficit, all of which stayed between 7 and 7.5 RPE, which for me is a great win. That was hard work for me. These volume blocks on Juggernaut AI are always the most difficult in my opinion, because not only are you doing squat, benching, and deadlifting, but you're doing it for voluminous sets, which is really tough on me. The bad news is I'm right in the middle of a hypertrophy block, so I still have 2 weeks left. The good news is that's really gonna get my work capacity up going into the strength and peaking blocks, obviously, so it's all for something, right? We're working towards that goal, so got to put up with it now and get through it. I'm really happy with how today went. Now, speaking of the shoes, I told you I'd give you some feedback. Overall, these are good lifting shoes in my opinion, and the key word there is shoes. I would not consider these a slipper like you're used to. This, in my opinion, is a slipper. A little bit floppy, really, really minimal, not much to it. It's basically like a sock with a little bit of a sole to it and maybe some straps to just help keep you dialed in. These rigid, stiff, very shoe-like, and the Velcro on top, so these are like Velcro shoes. depending on your preferences for your lifting footwear, this may be a good thing. I know a lot of people with this, the non-sumo sole, didn't like it because they didn't feel like it offered good lateral support. The sumo soles helped with that, and I think these help even more. So if you're looking for lateral support, I think these do a much better job than the other offerings from Notorious Lift. Now, some other things with this has a wide toe box, which again, I like. I have a little bit wider feet. These always kind of did me well because again, they're so minimal, they're stretchy. It really doesn't matter your foot size. You can fit in these no matter what. And even if they're a little bit small or a little bit snug, it can expand. You can also take the insoles out of these if you need to. So never had any issues with these personally. These new ones do not have insoles. The material is sewn right in. This does give you, I think, a little bit of a higher starting point off the ground, but still I would consider this very minimal. And the bottom tread is very present here as opposed to, again, the non-sumo soles on this, which is not really there, but I still find these are grippy enough for me and how I use them. Now, some things with this compared to the Tolos, which I've also been lifting a lot in, that I like better in this shoe is the fact that the sole is almost completely flat. So there's no real rounded edges outside of just the extreme edge, whereas this, you have kind of this gradual curve that comes up as well as in the archway itself. These still, I think, are really good for lifting, but I definitely feel more planted in something like this than in this. But I think these are much more aesthetic looking and a similar type design. I would wear these outside of the gym. In fact, I do wear these outside of the gym. These I would not. One thing I think would help with the design of this particular colorway in particular is if they just change the Velcro straps out to white, just because it is a pretty much all white shoe outside of the lettering. And I think depending on how tight you strap these up, I don't like an overly tight strap. I'm not really a strap-on kind of guy, but this kind of shows, and I just don't like how it's black right there. I wish that would have been all whited out. But overall, these get my blessing or approval if you're looking for shoes. I don't know how much these cost. You might be able to find other alternatives, but if you like Notorious Lift, or maybe you didn't like them in the past because you found that they just didn't offer enough support, these might be more up your alley. And I'm gonna get on to feet up bench because I'm wasting a lot of time. All right, so feet up bench is done. I did 5 sets of 10 to 12, and it called for 10 to 12. Goal was to get RPE 7. The first couple of sets I was able to hit 12, got really fatigued really fast, so I ended up doing the last couple sets of 10. Luckily, I didn't have to drop the weight, which is okay if I had to, but ideally in my mind, I wanted to keep that same weight, which is nice because last week, I think I hit only my last set for 210 as I worked my way up, still trying to kind of find my feet a little bit. Now, speaking of finding things and maybe not necessarily hitting the mark, I thought I was going to be testing out these Pioneer knee sleeves today. However, they are too small. These are a size medium. They don't really have a sizing chart because again, these are still just in the prototype phase, but I've been able to fit into smalls and mediums and other brands with this stiff material. Not the case today. Couldn't even get it over my calves, which if you guys know my calves, wasn't hard. So unfortunately, these things do not fit. I have to go with a bigger size. So instead, I'm going to be testing out the Titan TKS knee sleeves, which with my conversations with Titan, getting the right pair, initially we thought an extra large would be the right size given my circumferences. These are too big. Now this design, as I've said in some of my other knee sleeve videos, which maybe I'll link on the screen if I am smart enough during the editing process, has that kind of hourglass type shape like the Inzers. The problem with these that I found is they fit good in the quad and the knee, but typically the calf for me leaves some gapping. These are definitely gapping. I'll try to show you some B-roll or side shots of it. So although initially they feel good, what I find with these types of sleeves with that gap, unless you size down, is they tend to slide down my legs a little bit during the working movement. So we'll see how that goes and I'll report back after I do these paused front squats or pause high bar squats with chains. I'm getting really weird today. All right, so I'm about 3/4 of the way done with these sets of high bar pause squats. Going really well, so that's one thing. More in the tightened sleeves. I'm a little out of breath because like I said, I'm literally just between sets. What I've noticed, I have not adjusted them at all. They are starting to go down as I had noted. My kneecap is right here. I have about 2 inches of space before the top of the sleeve. So the majority of the sleeve is down here. So again, they are sliding down. I could adjust them, but again, just wanted to test this out and my theory holds true. It does so far. I will say with this a couple of things. When they slide down, even though that's not ideal, when I bend my knee now, because all the material's at the bottom, I get little to no gapping down here, which is a plus. But the downside is I think I want my knee right in the middle. That way I have more support up top. So I'd have to readjust these. So when they're fitted as they should, there's gapping, but again, they're sliding down, which eliminates the gapping just because it's so far down my leg that when I bend my knee, the material down here is not affected. The other thing I get, because I get a lot of questions online about this, I know a lot of people have issues with the inserts because of the stitching in the back. These Titans, although they do have these side stitchings, kind of similar to the old Ray-Ban ones, there is still rear stitching up and down the back of your leg. Now, right now, this is not too bothersome to me, but again, I think because they're a little bit bigger, there's more room to breathe, so to say. It's not an issue, but again, the downside of having more material is that they're sliding down. And also, if I'm going to squat, hey, I'm in camera now. There's a lot of extra excess material here bunched up. So again, it's not necessarily ideal. And that's one of the problems with these types of sleeves, in my opinion, in my experience at least, is that sizing is super, super inconsistent across all brands. Really, really make sure you measure and also make sure you get the type of knee sleeve shape that fits your leg. So for me, a traditional cone style or a traditional taper from top to bottom usually works best because of my smaller calves. If you have bigger calves, these will be more ideal because again, you shouldn't have that gapping. They should fit a little bit better and they won't slide down. But the issue people run into that I've seen a lot with these is they size down because again, they want as tight as fit as possible, but they get tight to the point where they're then harder to take off of the leg. So it's really kind of a toss up. So even though I think these sleeves are good and nice, I still think the majority of my training, at least through hypertrophy and strength, will be done in what I would consider a normal sleeve, which is funny to say because even those are 7 millimeters thick, but a lot of them have more stretch and whatnot. So I'm gonna finish up this last set here and then move on to my accessory work. All right, so training is done. Ended up taking around 2 hours, a little bit more. I marked it down a little bit to 1 hour and 40 minutes just because when I'm down here and I'm filming videos like this, or I'm trying to get B-roll or I'm taking time between sets, it just ends up adding a lot to the overall working that I'm doing. So if you figure I'm doing 14 working sets and I'm resting like 3 minutes between each of those, I'm also taking time to warm up. You know, that alone is taking me 45 minutes or so. And then kind of taking these videos and talking in between, even though it's only a minute or two for these little clips, they add up over time and just setting up angles, cameras, checking stuff, making sure the mic is on. It just adds up, which is one of the reasons I don't like to film a lot as much because I want to come down here and do work. And I feel like I did a very good job of doing that today. I rated the RPE of the session at a 7. So even though I'm in here, I'm doing what I consider heavy work for me and a lot of it between squat, bench, and deadlift. I feel really good. And one of the things I like about Juggernaut is it kind of regulates it to make sure that I don't feel like shit the next couple of days. So I have one more training day tomorrow, taking the weekend off and then back at it for more hypertrophy block, which is going to add even more volume to what I'm doing. But I'm really liking being back on this program and kind of implementing the things that I can. Hopefully this video helps you some, give you a little bit of feedback on the Notorious Lift Gen 3 slippers, as well as those Titan TKS sleeves, which are gonna look a little bit different from the retail model just because I got an early release version. But I have a ton of sleeves. If you've seen on Instagram, I posted the picture, maybe I'll put it here. Lots of sleeves to go through, and I'm thinking of doing just one big sleeve video. So let me know what you wanna know about the sleeves in the comment section below. And in the meantime, as always, thanks for watching and stay big. Woo!